So patient after that really extended break, but finally we're good to go for game two. Just a reminder, Regicide Duskfall had a bit of a back and forth game one, but ultimately they scaled up, and Avo at the end was able to bring them over the line and take game one.
Yeah, it was a good start to the series, and of course, we still have a plethora of League of Legends to be played, so we'll see what does end up happening as we get into the draft real quick and easy. Triple T's fan club currently looking like, they have a little bit of contention, but of course, Regicide Duskfall in the end will be the ones to take this one out swinging. So, of course, Regicide's still not going to be able to have any bans. They're just going to be able to pick up the champions.
Oh.
I don't know why that word took so long to get, but of course,
it happens.
So still more bans toys on game one. Of course, the Tristana getting banned out as well, the Pantheon in that fashion. So Triple T, they take their own stuff to the bans, and now we'll see what Regicide Duskfall does go for. They take the Seraphine as the opening pick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it opens up the option for the Ashe Seraphine. Excuse me, has slightly fallen off over the last few weeks because mage bots have taken over and are kind of the new meta, but still Seraphine on her own a relatively strong support as is, and also does open up the option to consider potentially having to force the Ashe pick away on side of Triple T. They haven't gone for it just yet as they pick up the Xin Zhao.
Xin Zhao is certainly one of the more popular junglers in the current meta. Triple T fan club maybe going to look to try and leverage this up towards top side. We saw the Wukong last game to give us a little bit of a curveball, kind of doubting it, but of course that is still in the realm of possibilities. These two teams, they love to go for some crazier picks, and next up, the Syndra to go along with it.
Yeah, strong mid-jungle duo with opposite damage profiles, lots of easy setup for the Xin Zhao. To be able to hit, to be able to follow up with a Scout of the Week will leave you CC'd quite a long time. So not going to be answering with a bot lane pick for themselves. Instead, they want to be able to use this extra pressure in the mid lane. And, well, I mean, I guess in celebration of League Classic, we got an old Kog'Maw icon. Splash art, that's the term I'm looking for. Lord Kog'Maw splash art for as it's locked in by Regicide Duskfall.
Locking this in, looking to go towards the bot side, not electing for the Ashe by it in all means. So whether or not that is going to be some kind of crazy curveball where they look to try and place that up towards the mid lane or something of that caliber, we'll have to wait and see. But likely not going to be the case, especially as the Akali does get placed in towards the mid side.
Yep. Lots of mobility. Akali going to have the ability to shirk and flip away from the pressure that Syndra and Xin Zhao are able to utilize, but will obviously be at the range disadvantage playing into the Syndra. So we'll have to show off some skills from Haruki. To be fair, they did hit quite a few good shockwaves in game one and definitely showed a lot of good individual prowess. We'll see if they can continue that into game two. The response from Triple C's fan club will be to lock in the Nautilus as well, you just press that ult, and it doesn't matter how much Akali flips and jumps away, it's still going to follow you.
Yeah, Nautilus certainly an interesting pickup. Still haven't elected for their bot lane yet. Traditionally, you do see the support as a little bit on the farther end of things.
You say that, but Mage's bot are all the rage these days, so I would...
That is definitely true. We could see that.
I know I was talking about Syndra and Xiao's mid-jungle duo, so that is a fair sort of a move away, but to be fair, I just throwing that out there.
I mean, there's a lot of different options that we could be seeing, especially with the Regicide squad not having any bans. It definitely can impact the state of this, but as they are going to just try and get in through this, we'll see what they do end up electing for as their final stuff. As, of course, we get the Aatrox and Ornn ban coming in from Triple T's fan club, so... Interesting. So I guess they had a little bit of a thought process that because the Aatrox and Ornn band they're likely going to go for a kind of carry-based champion up towards the top side, and so opting in for the Riven, it certainly is a interesting idea. I don't know how feasible it is that Triple T were going to go for it, as it's not the most popular pickup. Something like the Ambessa might be a little bit more likely. The Galio pickup, that does give us a little bit more interest towards the Syndra being in the bot side. Of course, that also could be in top lane.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine the Galio will follow the Akali wherever it goes. A lot of base magic resist on the Galio, and also The Shield of Durand very good at being able to taunt Akali because she'll go into her shroud and then you just hold W and then there's nowhere you can go really inside that shroud that escapes out of it. So generally a good counter pick coming through for Triple T. Also got themselves a really nice front line with Nautilus, Galio, and Xin Shao. Will be very hard to chunk through. Until Kog'Maw eventually gets online, but before that's definitely very beefy. Speaking of beef, said you want it. Well, okay, that's more like pork, but either way, it's still the lock-in for Regicide Duskfall.
An interesting pickup for sure. We'll see whether or not that is going to bleed in towards Triple T Fan Club electing to try and maybe go for something that will likely look to build up the Bork up in top side. We could see maybe the Vayne get locked in against that Scion. Definitely would put him in a little bit of a hurting position. Maybe something else like the Mbessa that likes to do a similar thing. Of course, Scion, the tankiest champion in the game, and something that really is going to have a lot of struggle to kill on the side of Triple T's Fan Club. But Regicide Duskfalls, they are on match point currently. Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually, because they want to use the W to spin to win and then get right on the Scion's armor and destroy them with the ultimate in the end. Of course, this does work better into something like the Mbessa, but the Garen definitely not a rough pick by any means. That does mean you are in a pretty correct pick with the Syndra being in the bot lane, likely, and the Galio opting up towards mid side.
Yeah, I mean, the Galio is always going to be playing into the Akali, regardless of where it went. But we are loading on to the Rift for Game 2 between Triple T's Fan Club and Regicide Duskfall. Once again, Triple T's opting in to the Mage bot lane. It got off to an early advantage last time around. I have a feeling it might play out somewhat similarly, at least early on. We'll be looking for Triple T to be able to win this early game and hopefully for them try to convert that early game advantage into a victory, because if it does go on a long time, you've got a Scion who gets extremely tanky without a lot of options to be able to cut through it. And you've got a Kog'Maw who is also going to be hyperscaling into the late game.
And now still just taking a little bit of a fast approach in the mid lane as both players trying to get a bit aggressive. Same thing with the jungle with the Xin Zhao already using the Wind Becomes Lightning to get a little bit of impact onto the opposing players. And moving down towards the bot side, you can kind of see a bit of a collapse starting to ensue with this blue side of RGC taking a little bit of priority over towards the minions. And up in top lane, not a whole lot to talk about. Of course, the Scion going to be taking a plethora of damage. However, Kami-sama having the chance to be able to cement a kill, very unlikely.
Hook goes forward onto AVO. We'll have a decent amount of return damage coming out, but you say there's not a lot to talk about in the top lane. Personally, I disagree. When you grab the Ignite in any top lane matchup, there's a lot to talk about. Before we get to that, Avo hit by a max range hook, going to have to flash away from any further damage to prevent the Ignite fully burning them down. We'll move up to the top lane once too. Speaking of Ignites, it's dropped onto Smelly Beef. Will use the shield to try to survive long enough in the bush. Won't quite be able to break vision long enough for Kami-sama to get first blood to the side of TTT.
As of now hitting this damage onto the opposing support player, with Cratchard now having to really start to get themselves in a bit of a healthier position. Definitely not the most fortunate position to be in by any means. And so it's going to be able to connect the taunt. Won't try and follow up by any means. And now they are going to try and initiate a bit of an engagement, instigating from the Akali. Not going to collapse onto too much. They're going to take the front of the damage instead. And with no junglers in close proximity, it's going to lead both players to a bit of a standstill, but not for long.
Oh, Justice Punch hits the mark. Haruki will can flip on out to be able to escape, but with very, very low health. Luckily, they do have access to the teleport, so they won't likely lose out on too much if they do go back to base. But Haruki still sticking around. Wings of War chunking him down even lower. So we'll have to take a lot of time to be able to eventually move back to safely recall. May lose out more than what they would have otherwise. They just went straight for it.
Might have a little bit of damage to come down. Scion doing good work, dealing a plethora of damage over towards Kami-sama. And so is Kami-sama now just still under the tower. Double stun connected. I don't know how they're able to conclude that, but certainly a a good appearance from the Syndra to be able to make both players hurt. And
You're going for it extremely aggressively. Hits the hook onto Avo. Will check him out quite low. Nightmare Scabs Week. That has enough to kill? Incredible that it does. Nightmare picks up the 2v2 kill, and as actual trash goes forward, it's ill-advised as the poke is waiting in the wings for the gank, making it a 2 quick kills to TTT.
This TTT squad is certainly looking to put up the numbers on RGC as they are now all the way up to a 1.5k gold advantage, and with a Drake spawning in a minute, it's definitely going to be them who has a decent advantage in terms of the gold disparity, with Nightmare up around 1,000 already. And it certainly seems like this TTT squad is having a very similar approach to what we saw in the last game. They were able to take a really good start to the matchup, and then towards the end, RGC just looked a little bit
Justice
better.
Punch going to hit the mark. Haruki in a bit of trouble under their own tower. Sun not quite going to come through, so Haruki will be okay for now. But having used teleport earlier, not quite going to be nearly as safe to be able to recall and come right back as they once were. Obviously did pull off the recall and did go for it, and so we'll lose out quite a bit. But moving up to the top side of the map, Poke looking for yet another gank. Was successful the first time around. Ignite dropped onto Smelly Beef, so Kami-sama, all he has to do is walk away and set up an easy kill for Poke.
It does seem like Kami-sama might pay the price.
Kami-sama, oh yeah. Yeah, a very aggressive, potentially greedy on the zombie foreign Scion. Doesn't get killed in the end, so his greed is not punished, but definitely perhaps a little bit needless in that risk.
Oh, just going over towards the tower. Gonna have the minions starting to collapse, but won't matter too much. There will still be the Golly to sweep up all of the given minions, and canceling the back, still looking to try and fight under this lane. And with the Drake up, that might be the best idea possible, as TTT is certainly going to want to look to fight for it. And if you allow that Golly to get the space to be able to push downwards, they might inevitably be able to create the impact needed to give RGC a little bit more leeway into the match.
Yeah, but it will need a lot of it at this point, to be fair. We saw something similar last time around, but TTT looking for yet another play. Nikki going to have to top away, but a good scatter the weak finds a stun onto 2. Actual trash, the new target for TTT. Poke claims the kill. A Q will hit the mark onto an escaping Nikki, and yet again TTT find 2 and are up 3k gold.
It was a spectacular team fight, to say the least, from TTT, going in flawlessly. And at this point, certainly seems like a game 3 is all but on the cards, with the massive gold lead coming in the favor of TTT in a spectacular way of taking this Drake as well. So it's going to be very, very difficult for them to be able to get back into this, especially when considering the fact that in terms of composition, it's not like they're playing a team comp. There really is a lot of scaling to it either. Of course, the Seraphine likely going to get a little bit of extra potency later on into the matchup, but it's not like the rest of the team is on some crazy scalable characters like a Nasus, and instead it's a Scion, somebody who, yes, you do get a decent bit of HP, especially when it comes to Heartsteel later on, but it's just not going to be enough, one would have to imagine, to be solely relying on that comparatively to your opponents, who right now are just bulldozing over you. And it's a pretty, I guess, different tone than last game, even though it's a relatively similar approach, because instead of RGC making the team fights look close and still losing out in the end, this time it is RGC just not having any chances. We've seen now everyone except for the mid laner dying
out of the week, going to hit the mark onto actual trash. Level 6 available to Nightmare. Won't unleash the power as it's not quite up and available off cooldown. But I mean, even without it, actual trash chunked down to half HP. And considering on your point, I'd like to also add a little bit different from game 1 as well, is the fact that RGC had an okay start to that game 1. And even though TTT eventually swung it back their way, which they couldn't quite hold, what's different this time around is just how fast TTT are playing it. It really took TTT until around like the 10-minute mark to fully be like in the game and in a comfortable lead that they obviously didn't end up closing out on. But this time around, even though time equally isn't on their side here in game 2, they've clearly done a lot to be able to buy themselves more of it, to be able to have a larger window of being able to close out the game.
Yeah, at the moment, RGC just looking like they are going to be able to dictate the tempo non-existently. TTT has just completely overwhelmed them, and they're going to do it once more as the Void Grub's going to be taken without any contestation, because if you leave this lane, it's going to be your tower who's next on the chopping block.
Yeah, and which it is started up by the side of TTT. Hook will be flashed away by actual trash. Avo will body block for support, usually not the way around you see, but Nikki arriving for a gank, sets up a shutdown for Avo. Slow going to find its way onto Cratcher, uses the minion to hook onto to try to escape, but they're going to continue under the tower. Stun comes through, shutdown gets into the hands of Nikki to get 2 kills back to the side of RGC.
So backing up, going over the wall, trying to play this relatively slow. RGC under tower now, and it's not looking ideal if you're on this Kami-Sami top lane, especially seeing as the Garen was a pick that, I mean, yeah, it's supposed to work and it's doing its job, but unfortunately finding a lead against this opposing Scion, I mean, yes, it's happening still. Yes, they are up 600 gold, but being able to leverage that just seems to be a non-existent affair for them. And so what that really is going to start leading me to believe is they're going to have a really difficult time split pushing if we do end up getting into a later style, since they don't have the teleport. And I think that could definitely become a little bit of an Achilles heel for the squad.
Yeah, that only time will tell. At the very least, TTT's gold lead has been shrunk down as a result of the 2 shutdowns going to the side of RGC. Avo picking up a relatively big one for themselves. Cuts it down to 1.5k gold of reconnect for Smelly Beef. It's a bit surprised that we didn't see a pause. Okay, there it goes. Comes through. It shouldn't be all that long, as you know, we've seen Smelly Beef reconnect apparently 2 times now. So luckily this pause timer should come back down and come back through relatively quickly. But on that front that you were talking about with Kami-sama having that early lead, and yeah, I do have to agree, would have like to see a lot more out of the TTT top laner to be able to expand their lead, to snowball that early kill that they got. I mean, I was looking forward to what Kami-sama was able to do in this 1v1, but just a really quiet from them ever since then, unfortunately.
Yeah, still going to have a little bit of a timeout. Hopefully these players will be able to get it sorted out soon. We can look towards the bot lane. Certainly seems like TTT is really gathering a lead, and so definitely seems as if a game 3 is going to be all but inevitable due to the fact that, I mean, how exactly did they come back from this? I don't think it is going to be a very cut and dry answer. It's going to require a lot of resilience, a lot of grit, a lot of determination, and as we do get back into the game, still punishing under the tower, TTT going to still be able to provide a little bit of extra damage.
I think another part of that equation is time. To add another T that TTT need to look out for. RGC, they just need time. And to be fair, they've done a lot of it getting AVO that shutdown. They've gotten themselves an acceleration towards the point in which ideally they just become so big that TTT can't really do much into this huge Scion, and AVO is just allowed to auto attack freely at range and cut through, slice down TTT. But that is going to take time for RGC, and well, considering TTT have had trouble accelerating their lead after around I'd say maybe the 6-minute mark I think RGC are completely fine with how this game currently is going. Sure, they aren't necessarily getting too much for themselves in the last few minutes, but that, I mean, that's more than fine for them.
Of course, now as the Drake does spawn up,
and we get this way onto actual trash. Unleashed power is enough to finish off the kill onto the Seraphine. So of course, right as I say that RGC needs time, they've gotten themselves quite a bit of it. Caster Curse comes through, and that very easily opens up the Drake going the way of TTT. They'll be the second one getting to their hands, getting them all that much closer to the soul point.
So with the Drake now converted, TTT likely going to be able to get this all sorted out soon. It is taking them a surprising amount of time to be able to finish it with the amount of players that they have invested over and towards it. But as of now, we are just going to be seeing the Kami-Sami up in top side and dealing a plethora amount of damage. They are not going to get the full decimating smash off. And
Haruki in the middle of everyone, going to be snared up. Depth charge comes through, but Akali is way too slippery to be able to come out of that troubled. And now up to the top side, Nikki going to pick up the shutdown onto Kami-sama. So it's gone from bad to worse for this Garen after what was such a promising start.
Definitely not the optimal situation by any means. We'll see whether or not they are going to be able to change this up very shortly. But under the tower they go, and it's another kill. Actually, not going to be converted.
No, Haruki is all right, and a lot of tower shots comes through. Cratcher positioning really aggressively. Will take a huge chunk of South Bar out, throws a little dab on him, but it was more of a sarcastic one on that front, because that certainly does not feel good for the support of TTT. But luckily, I mean, he's just going to recall, and in terms of roles that don't mind that as much, support's probably the most where it's the least impacted by that.
Still just playing slow down the bot side. They have the Nautilus coming back shortly. They got RGC up in the mid lane with now they actually are going to be looking for this Vampiric Scythe as next component for the build, and once more the engagement does start to contest. As up towards top side, we are going to be seeing the exact same thing. Both teams have been super aggressive, and what that has actually meant is that TTT, this gold wave, not necessarily the same prevalence it once was.
This is so depressing for Kami-sama, by the way. I hate to cut you off. That is so depressing for Kami-sama to drop everything onto Smelly Beast, and now with the help of Poke, might have a chance to be able to turn this around. This Scion has now hit a point where he's not on unkillable, and well, they will push a bit forward. Ult drops Demacian. Justice will equalize up his top lane, and luckily by Kami-sama, a little bit of extra breathing room up there.
Down towards the bot side of the map, we are still going to be seeing Kami-sama alive and happy. As RGC currently just looking to try and make anything out of this game, and so far it really hasn't been working. They've lost the first 3 objectives. The next one up, the Herald, not necessarily the most impactful thing on the map, so realistically, even if they are able to take that, they won't be too I guess, happy with the state of the game despite it. See whether or not that is going to really be even in the realm of possibilities. Certainly seems like TTT is starting to compose.
Oh, Nightmare may have pushed his luck a little bit too far, but we now turn our attention to the mid lane. Poke trying to find a gank. Haruki going to go back in with the second cast of the Shuriken flip. We'll be all right in the end. Cratch roaming down to try to influence this fight. Hook drops down onto the jungler of RGC. Hero's entrance will force the move away from the members of RGC. Isolates out Haruki a bit, but a shutdown comes throughout the perfect execution from Haruki. 648 gold goes into the inventory of the mid laner of RGC, and all the while in the bot lane, AVO will pick up another kill as well onto Nightmare. So the exchange down the bot lane that we saw being impactful in the end, but we continue up in the mid lane. Ult from Magus. Nikki will ensure that the taunt won't come through, and Haruki will pick up their second kill of the game.
And it certainly seems like for the first time in this game, RGC is starting to give a little bit of a fight towards it.
They've got a gold lead.
And yeah, it's now going back up towards top side. Obviously, Kami-sama is still a little bit more, I guess, prevalent in the matchup. So Kami-sama likely going to be willing to fight this, unfortunately for Smelly Bean. And as now coming down towards bot side, we will see a few of the players going for backs.
Yeah, and I mean, they'll have a pretty good buy as they come back with the extra items in their inventory, especially Haruki seeing 1.7k gold up over Lost in Echoes. Excuse me. In the matchup that they picked for themselves, wanting to play that Galio into the Akali. So Haruki particularly strong performance so far here in game 2. Well, pretty much the only reason why RGC have the gold lead that they do, and so Kami-sama will try to put that advantage to rest. But once again, Akali just going to flip around and not really care at all. I think we might have lost Cherry, but at the very least, Drake started up on the side of TTT Mountain. Drake is the one sole potentially available. Unstoppable onslaught from Smelly Beef goes to get him in the middle of everyone. It's a steal away from RGC. It's a hectic fight, but AVO autoing away at range, completely untouched. Haruki goes to the middle of everyone, cuts through, slices down TTT, and Poke has nowhere left to go except for back in to try to at least get a kill back in return. Is unsuccessful in doing so, and RGC's lead balloons up to 3.6k gold. It's only going to go even further with only Kami-sama the one left on the map. It's absolutely massive for the Regicide, and they are looking to, well, do exactly that. I wouldn't know if we would call it TTT the kings of this league, or if we could really call anybody kings of EML at this point, but for a team that had ambitions of being that first seed coming into this week, hold that thought. Haruki goes straight in onto Nightmare, who's completely chunked out by just a handful of abilities. We'll have no chance to try to find the follow-up on Haruki, and it's really just kind of highlights the advantage that Haruki has in this game. Now 2.4k Gup gold over Lost and Echoes, 4.4k total for RGC in general across the map. And it's really all fallen apart for TTT once again. The time has come for the kings to be slain. Dusk has fallen for Triple T's fan club. And, well, the chances of them sending us through to a game 3 looking slimmer and slimmer. The fact that they weren't even able to put themselves on the sole point with the steal away from the top laner, Smelly Beef, as well. It's more of a exclamation point on top of how this has gone for them. And once again, RGC have found the time necessary to be able to get back into this series. Luckily, Barrett is coming up, and, oh, I don't exactly think we'll have a fight for that objective come through. I see, Cherry, that you are now no longer unmuted. I'm going to check. Are you back? Are we good to go, or?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I was scared for a little bit there that you might have DC'd, because I saw the little mute pop up, and I'm like, oh, what's going on?
Well,
so I thought
yeah,
I'd
no,
fill
it's
in,
just
but it's good to have you back.
a situation where I was taking a drink of water, and sometimes my mouth makes a little bit of a noise, so I was just like, yeah, I should probably.
Before you get to that, yep, Cratcher getting really aggressive, trying to help out Kami-sama, but so much is getting shown to Smelly Beef that I mean, every single time they do, I mean, they found a kill a couple times ago. That was mostly on Smelly Beef walking back in unnecessarily. Kami-sama now in a ton of trouble. And, yep, slowly ticking down. Ult committed from Magus Nikki to be able to secure it, but Smelly Beef is just completely untouched, completely unharmed. Poke's going to try to go in. There's nothing you can do against a Scion. There's actually genuinely nothing that they can do. They can drop everything onto Smelly Beef, but he loses hardly any sort of health. Poke going to have to commit the Crescent Guard as well. They get a decent chunk of damage onto Nikki, to be fair to them, but so much committed from the top side of TTT, and to get nothing for it is, it's just kind of indicative of the state of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's really rough for the time being, and RGC, it certainly does have a lot of same tones towards the last game where they were so down, they were down, I think, 5k gold or so, and then they just make this comeback, and they start winning fights, and this is exactly how this team likes to play. They come into these team fights, look spectacular, and then just win the game off of it. So we'll see whether or not they can conclude it in the same respect. I think it is certainly going to be a close matchup, well, probably a lot closer than what we saw in Game 1, where instead of it being match point, it was 0-0 across the board, and of course TTT not nearly the same amount of pressure to win this game, but as they did come into this a high higher seed. They were expected to be able to win this, and maybe that gave them a little bit of a sense of security that was probably unfound. And so as TTT now having to already get forced away with some flashes, certainly not a very comfortable spot to begin with.
Yeah, Nightmare going to be down a flash once again. A pretty impactful one on, you'd have to expect to, I mean, comparatively for the rest of the team, you can call their carry at this point at such an important time with the Drake spawning in 13 seconds. It would be soul point to TTT if they could somehow find the Drake going their way. Out in the wild, actual trash gets a kill onto Lost and Echoes on the other side of the map, make it yet another advantage to RGC with the Drake spawning as if they needed it on top of the 5.7k gold lead. They'll try to find Nightmare, mind you, has no flash, tunked really low. Nikki pushing even farther forward, living artillery, shots dropping down. That final one won't quite hit, unnecessary as Nikki's the one to get the kill. Kami-sama does their best to try to find the damage needed onto AVO to find the kill, but not going to be able to get it. Drake's going to eventually be turned on. Cratcher will try to find a hook onto actual trash and maybe find an isolated member of RGC, but just not nearly enough. Rift Herald crashes into mid lane, opens up the map, and opens up a very easy Drake to the hands of RGC.
And getting this now on their hands, they're certainly starting to change this up despite TTT taking the first 2 Drakes of the game. RGC responding in kind now with their own 2. It's really, really good for them to be able to continue to be able to prioritize objectives that are necessary for their success. And now it certainly seems like the Scion might be in a little bit of trouble. They trying to connect the Decimating Smash. Unfortunately, won't be able to make any real impact. And as they do now have the Seraphine scene, it certainly might change the pace.
Thatcher going to hook in, trying to find a pick onto actual trash. Taunt drops from the shield. Red Hair Rookie, though, on the opposite side of the map, finds a 1v1 kill. Now going to be teleporting back up on top of Onslaught. Decimating Smash finds CT onto the entirety of TTT. And Haruki has arrived. Haruki is unstoppable. AVO all equally, completely untouched. And once again, Regicide, Duskfall are slowly saying good night to TTT as they turn onto the Baron.
And now with the Baron in hand, this might just be GG right in session, as the chances of them being able to take away this game very, very low. It certainly seems like this has already come to a conclusion, but of course we have seen teams fumble bags before. Losses have been created out of miracles, and we'll see whether or not that is going to be in the realm of possibilities. But I think with the Baron and a 8k gold buffer, it should very realistically just be the side of RGC to be able to go up and find their way and create even more confusion and chaos within the group.
9k gold lead to Regicide, Duskfall. Not only that, AVO, it has scaled up, has a 3-item power spike. Haruki, 700 gold shutdown on the head. Same thing for Nikki, maybe not quite as threatening on their own as the other 2. And I think that really is it also, because on that front, on top of the 9k gold lead, RGC scale much better into the late game. And now at 25 minutes, now that they have all their items, now that they're in a prime position, even at level gold, to be able to take fights with a 9.5k gold lead now, it'll be nothing short of a miracle for TTT to find a win in this game too.
Yeah, and it certainly does seem to be a very unreasonable ask to get them a win despite such a successful start. This team really does need to work on the team play, one has to imagine, because them in lanes has looked good, yes, but when it comes to actual, like, playing as a team, going into fights, this has just been such a lackluster approach from the group, and it really has to be a little bit better when it comes to longer fights. So I don't know whether or not they're going to be able to improve throughout the rest of this, and whether or not this was just a flunk because of substitutions or maybe something else causing the issues, but this certainly was something that you really can't be expecting from a team of this caliber.
Yeah, I mean, you say potentially substitutes, but according to the rosters, this is their main starting 5. This is exactly the lineup that they would have wanted for, and Regicide Duskfall needing 2 E-subs today as well. Not exactly the best look from Triple T's fan club as they get pushed back even further. Once again, at the very least, they'll answer with an objective bounty with the mid lane taken down. Poke going to be actually not going to be hit by the glacial prison. It was looking almost completely doomed for that Singe Tao, but at least for now, Poke will be, I don't know if okay is the right word considering the state of the game, but we'll live to see another day.
Of course, you really can't imagine any of these players are going to be okay morally. This has been such a terrible turnaround for them. And so now that we are going to be seeing the tragedy striking once more with the Baron minions propped right against this tower, certainly does seem like this is going to continue to be the same level of aggression.
Going to go in, Hero's entrance not quite going to hit anyone, and it's a great encore to find the sun on two to slow the advance of TTT. And Smelly Beef, Magus, Nikki are right at the very least. An Ignite will trade back a shutdown, but AVO's left completely untouched. Flash forward from Kami-sama finds a shutdown onto the ADC of RGC, but look at the remaining members of TTT. They don't need their fed Kog'Maw to be able to win this fight. They don't need their 1 in 5 Akali now to be able to come out on top because Kami-sama on the flank is spotted out. Nikki will make it a 3v2 in favor of TTT.
Yeah, and at this point, the next Drake right on the chopping block certainly does seem like this game has been concluded with the side of TTT having a few players making a little bit of some heroic moves in this last fight. Unfortunately, it's not enough to be able to collapse for a win, and now with the Drake coming on down, I mean, they're one away from Soul, and of course, this is one of the less impactful Souls, especially this late into the game, but it still is going to be a good tool to be able to create some kind of win. And so as we are going to just continue looking for the RGC squad's final moments, I mean, you'd imagine that this game will likely come down to just, will they be able to continue to leverage this, or do they give the side of TTT some kind of opening to get their way back into the matchup? And as of now, I mean, it certainly does seem pretty dire for the squad, but
yeah, it also seems really dire for Kratcher, who is I don't know what he's doing there. Let's just put it that way. I'm not quite sure what Kratcher is doing on that side of the map, and is thusly punished by RGC. Luckily, he's not really worth all that much gold, and I mean, there is maybe an argument to be made that he draws RGC's attention away from what? I'm not sure, but it's not the worst death in the world.
And certainly not the worst, certainly not the best by any means, and as now we are getting TTT pushed up top side, bot lane, it is going to be 2v1 now.
Yep, and the unstoppable onslaught going to find the knock-up onto Kami-sama as soon as AVO arrives. Any hope that Kami-sama had of winning that 1v1 versus Smelly Beef will is dashed by the fact that it wasn't a 1v1 and you've got a nearly 4-item Kog'Maw running at you, and yeah. Less said about that, the better. AVO, though, going to have to flash away from Kratcher to be able to survive. At the very least, it does leave the Kog'Maw a little more exposed for a potential Baron fight, which is spawning up now. Any little advantage TTT will absolutely take for themselves because they will need it. Starting up, Haruki, it seems like they don't even care. Going in the midst of everyone, going to be targeted out by the Nautilus ult. And, yeah, doesn't quite really care about that at all. Will just heal right back up. Baron started up by the side of RGC, will be spotted out. Baron now down to 8k. Nikki going on the wall, spotting out Kratcher. Wanted to try to collapse onto Nightmare, who will flash over the wall to escape. But that is all the damage from TTT. Now gone. AVO going to get the kill onto Kratcher. Nikki flashing forward, gets the knock up on to the Syndra. Won't quite find the kills just yet. Living Artillery doing its best to drop the damage needed onto Nightmare. Finally, the Deathbaiting Smash actually won't land, but keep your eyes on AVO. Slowly chunking out Kami-sama. Eventually, both the Syndra and the Garen, and Well, everyone on the side of TTT will go down. Poke also completely pushed under their own tier 3 tower. Won't matter. Ace goes the way of RGC. They don't need the Baron. They need the Nexus, and they will use it to be able to take game 2 in very convincing fashion. And they will use it to be able to take this series in a clean sweep and put us in a potentially very funny position, getting us relatively close to get the dream scenario, at least for the comedians and all of us. That we'll see the playoffs start with 7 teams on 4 and 3. We've got 2 of them now at the very least with an RGC victory.
Yeah, RGC taking this one really, really well. I mean, you can't play in lanes, and that's something they're gonna have to fix when playing against teams that might be a little bit better at creating solid play and taking leads and leveraging them. But for now, I mean, that just looked like a spectacular team fight game where they were just constantly the ones looking good, and you really got to give it up to this squad. 27-11 is the overall KD, a crazy number to be looking at due to the fact that, I mean, how do you do this after being down and out so heavily towards the start? But it just looked good. So I don't know about you, but of course I'm looking at this team as a really, really big front runner for the playoffs. And I mean, of course that is rough for the TTT squad, as they were in the front run, or they were in the running for a first place finish. And unfortunately that does end here because the fact that they did lose 2-0. And now Isaac, that is kind of just it's a little bit of devastation for him.
Yeah, it was not the result that they were looking for. I mean, obviously any loss is never the result that you're looking for, but to be able to be defeated in that manner by a team that had 2 E-subs as well is it's not the best look going into playoffs. Luckily, they had already confirmed playoffs for themselves quite a while ago, so it's not really all that much of a concern. But on that front, we're looking at results from elsewhere. Evernight did complete the victory over the Kingdom of Kittens, and so that will put them on 4 and 3 as well. Taking a look over Spire Rats. Oh, unfortunately, Spire Rats, or at least for me, hoping for an all 4-3 going into the playoffs. Spire Rats did take down Moonlight Spire 2-0, which will mean that they've put themselves in an incredible position to